Hello, beautiful ladies. Welcome back to another Whamming Hour. And we're joined tonight by a rather unusual crew for an unusual time of the week. So, Charlotte, Call of the Shield Maiden, welcome back. You're a Whamming Hour veteran. Been on two episodes to talk about Amish Mennonite communities and also to talk about women being welcome on the right. How are you doing tonight? Are you frozen or just giving me a look?
Yeah, no, I heard the music going twice.
Oh dear.
No, it's all good. I
I
can
think
hear
you've
you
got
good.
Well, good.
Yeah, it's all good. I can hear you. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
And Anna, sorry, I said your name already. I was going to not say it. Forget that. Thought Crime Queen, welcome to the show. I can edit that out later if you like.
It's all right. Thank you for inviting me.
First time on the stream, but veterans of the Whamming Hour Live, the one and only live show we've ever done, might remember you from the Witan. That was a kind of an unusual show. Let's speak no more about it and get on with what the topic of tonight's show, which is the Traditional Britain conference that we all attended this weekend. I was really happy to see both of you there, and without having an episode last week, I thought it was a good time to have an emergency stream just to let everyone know we're still alive and we're still doing the show. So I wanted to get your opinions about the conference, about the speakers, about events in general, and what the future of insofar as we have the influence and the capabilities to organize our own events or to help organize or to help influence these events. What should we be kind of aiming for, and what is even the goal of getting together and sharing these ideas when we could do these things online? What is the benefit of doing them together? So starting from the top, Shield Maiden, I believe did you say you took notes? Because I have some very sparse notes.
Well, I just wrote down a bit about what I remembered about each speaker.
Okay, do you remember their names? Because they weren't, not all of them were advertised.
Well, I know the first dude's name was Stephen, but I don't know his last name. And the thing is, I've checked their website and they haven't necessarily put everyone's name down either.
So maybe that's a good place to start. We'll just run. We can run through the speakers.
Yeah, they have uploaded the first speech, so Stephen's speech should be on YouTube.
Okay, right, so the Traditional Britain YouTube channel, they were recording with a proper camera, so I think you should be able to watch the entire speeches if you want to. But I have to say that my husband and I were not very impressed with Stefan, the first speaker. It was not off to a good start. Having dragged ourselves out of bed to catch a train at 7:30 in the morning, I thought perhaps it wasn't worth getting there on time to catch this one. Stefan was a sort of geopolitics expert. He was that was his hobby horse. He had a book about the Ukraine conflict, about geopolitical power and conflict in Europe. And he was specifically talking about the causes leading up to the Russia-Ukraine war. And I have to say, although I don't know much about it, my husband was highly dubious and found the whole thing a little bit tiresome. But he was presenting he was at least presenting a counter narrative to a lot of what has been going on in our mainstream news. A lot of the things that we're told, he was very much in the opposite direction to much of what we've been exposed to. So for people who are into that sort of thing and really know their stuff, perhaps it would be interesting to hear an alternate perspective. But for going purely on what my husband said, it was perhaps not really worth the time. Thought Crime Queen, what was your opinion of the first speaker?
Yeah, much the same. It's quite reassuring to hear that felt the same. I wasn't sure if it was just going over my head or not.
So my husband said that's like a specific tactic that people use to, with these complex subjects, they'll intentionally bamboozle you to make it seem like they know a lot more than you, just to give themselves credibility, almost, just to make you feel like, well, I didn't understand most of that, but from what I did understand, he was probably right, because he seemed to know so much. Like that's a one tactic that might be implemented.
I kind of thought that I kind of wrote what I thought a summary of his speech was, because I just kept drifting out of it. It wasn't capturing my attention. But it seemed to come up with the idea that basically the US wants every single country that they can get to join NATO, so in the future they can start a war with China. Was I mishearing him at all?
No, that actually does sound, that was one thing. Yeah, I mean, he would say that was the entire reason why there is now a war in Ukraine, which is even what he said was potentially true. He was talking about neocons, which is a valid sort of concept that I do agree with. This sort of pro-war right, this sort of globalist, especially American flavored right wing, we call neocons, who are generally in favor of the sort of Middle Eastern wars and that sort of thing. And I think broadly, he may be correct. I mean, it seemed like Donald Trump was really not that keen on getting America started any more wars or in geopolitics more broadly. Like he wanted to rule for the benefit of America, not to spread America to all corners of the planet. But in general, it seems that America is interested in not exactly starting a war with Russia, but in spreading their own brand of democracy to as many places as possible. They think that's good, and they want more places to be like America, broadly speaking. But to attribute the entire war to that, I think was a reach. Sorry, just to address the comment, it was not Stefan Molyneux. I don't know if that was a joke, but no, it was. I would have known who Stefan Molyneux was. It was not him, a different Stefan. So, was there more you wanted to talk about with him, or we can just move on and sort of chalk it up to a not very good speech?
Yeah, less said the better, maybe.
I should say that the neocon brand of right-wing thought is something that I was sort of more partial to for a while. I kind of had the idea that that the United States operating as a kind of world police. I mean, it was a joke in the film. What is that film called? The South Park Team America World Police. Is they make a big joke out of that entire concept, but for a while that did seem sort of legitimately like that might be a thing that could work, like America being a super powerful, somewhat benevolent force that would just stop everyone on Earth from using nukes and from going too extreme with their wiping out of other countries, etc. Now I'm not so sure about that. I generally disagree with neoconservatism. If I had to pick without a specific subject to debate about. We already have our first super chat, so I'm just going to read this out before we get onto the next speech. Even in death, I must super chat. My suggestion is don't get sick. It's nice to see you all back. From DRT for $5. Thank you very much. I'm not sure I understand that. I guess you're sick, so I'm sorry about that, DRT. I was sick for a while as well. I know it's terrible to be in bed, but I'm glad we're here to keep you entertained and keep you distracted from being sick. Team America is a good movie. I haven't watched it in a long time, and there's one scene in it that I really, really hate that I suspect I'm not alone in that opinion. So after we had Stefan, unknown last name, talking about Ukraine, we had our, to say the least, friend of the channel, Alexander Adams, the artist, art critic, art commentator, and all-round good bloke, talking about different ways that the right should be supporting artists, even not explicitly right-wing art, but just to keep the art movement alive, just to keep art in general alive by by various methods. So he gave, I think, sort of 6 or 7 different ways that the right could be supporting good art, not the what passes for art that's extremely politically motivated and not very talented work from that often gets a lot of the funding and a lot of attention these days. He wants us to support good artists producing art that makes us want to live and inspires us. There's stuff that is beautiful, stuff that is difficult to make. It's a sort of dying breed of artist now, and he wants it to remain alive. And of course, he has some self-interest in that, but he I think he's generally onto a good thing. And I enjoyed his speech. It was a high point of the morning. Shieldmaid, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was good, because it's also like, as opposed to the first speech, this is more something action-based, something that we can do kind of thing, which is I always like in speeches. And yeah, I did hear it suggest a few comments that it was self-promotion, but I get the idea he wants to bring everyone along with him. So yeah, I didn't find it to be self-promoting or anything.
I thought Crime Queen, did you have anything to add?
Well, yeah, kind of echoing the sentiment. It's really nice to hear more practical talks and sort of, talks about what we're going to do in the real world. I feel like I've heard more of those recently. There's certainly more at the WITAN in terms of, sort of nuts and bolts of things. And the Alexander's already organised a successful exhibition. So, it was really interesting to hear him sort of talk about that, and gave him some credibility as well, because it wasn't just sort of, we can do this and we can do that. And, there was a sense of things already being in motion, which I thought was really encouraging.
Yeah, no, that's definitely encouraging to be able to show evidence where you've already made good progress, and to be able to say you can support the specific movement. It's already happening. It gives people confidence to want to actually join it, rather than being all doom and gloom and making it seem like there's, we're pushing uphill. I think, yeah, that's a good insight. Yeah, definitely want to promote artists, especially in this new climate. The thumbnail of this video, by the way, was generated by what's it called, DALL-E 3, DALL-E 4, the AI, and it was the prompt was generated by the account on Twitter that I follow. Really can't remember the name because it's some German name, but he does a kind of right wing satire presence. So he posted this with a few other posts for what he calls Anglo-futurism. So I quite enjoyed that. But yeah, the fact that AI is now producing sort of moderately decent images is giving a lot of artists and illustrators a bit of something to worry about. And it's only
they get the hands right.
Yeah, they can get the fingers and the teeth right, and they can make faces that are more or less accurate. So I'd still say that nothing they produce is really of much artistic worth, but it's definitely illustrative. You can come up with an idea and it'll generate it. But this is not a stream about AI art. We're talking about the conference. But yeah, it's a good time to support artists, not just because you want to feel good, like there's some kind of charity case, but because you can actually own some really beautiful art, and to display that in your home will enrich your life, I think. And to make contacts with artists is always great. So that was the morning. I think that was all the speeches in the morning. If you correct me if I'm wrong, please, Shield Maiden.
There was 3 in the morning and then 3 in the afternoon. So that I've only written him down here as old dude. The speech that got really, really kind of awkward at the end.
Yeah. Okay. Was that the afternoon? You mean
the demographic?
I'm pretty sure that was just before lunch. Yeah.
The demographics was before lunch, wasn't it? Okay. No, you're right. Yes, yes, that is correct. I've got it written here, but for some reason I didn't read it. Yeah. So yeah, but old dude. It was a bit awkward, wasn't it? So old dude was an academic, whose name I can't remember, and he gave a presentation about demographics and fertility rates across all the world, not just about England, but talking about lots of different countries where the birth rate is falling. Pretty much in every country, it's below replacement and even the ones where it's above replacement, it is falling. So that was a lot of stuff that I knew already for the most part. He did talk about, in really vague terms, what countries are doing something about it, and which countries have succeeded in doing something about it. But did you want to describe why it got a bit awkward, the Shield Maiden?
I think it was a lot of it was towards the end of his speech, because I remember I was quite surprised he kept making remarks about global warming, or no, climate change is the word he used. I don't know if you picked up on them, because they were just little remarks that he didn't go into it. But the thing I found interesting about that is there's the projection of the population, but it can change, so it's not fixed in stone. But it was like I think with the question, sometimes he didn't understand what the people were asking, I think. And then when what is it called? Repatriation, is that the one? That's the one that got him going. Right, he was passionately proclaiming about how the repatriation needs to be canned forever or whatever. Yeah.
He said it wasn't possible to even entertain repatriation as an idea. As his speech was also tangled up with immigration, I should say. So not just talking about demographics and birth rate, but also saying that immigration is the only lever that the government can pull in order to get more people to support the state, to bolster GDP. If the births aren't happening, and they haven't been happening for a while, then immigration is something they're doing to forestall that. And although we, obviously we're at a traditional Britain conference, and a lot of the things that we can agree on are about immigration, and there should be less of it. And a lot of people in the room were pretty confident that repatriation was a good policy, and that it was possible to do it without what the speaker, this academic, called ethnic cleansing, which was, he brought that up. No one was suggesting ethnic cleansing, but I think it was a pretty low blow. It was pretty bad. What would you say? It was in pretty bad taste to bring up a term like that, to as if that was our only option, other than we had to either put up with the immigrants or it's ethnic cleansing. I thought that was a pretty bad form, and I think after he said that, particularly, it was a little bit awkward. And there are, I should say, as far as I know, there are countries on earth that have successfully repatriated their immigrant populations without using violence, without using coercion, just using encouragement and using sort of sensible financial incentives. I know that Israel has been in the news a lot for very different reasons, and we're certainly very concerned about what's going on there. I don't want to take that too lightly, but I know that Israel's immigration policy is fairly interesting. To go into it briefly here, I understand that if you want to immigrate to Israel, you need to put all of your earnings are taxed additionally, and they get put into a little savings fund just for you, that you can then have access to that savings fund only if you leave the country. If you repatriate to your original country, you leave, you get that savings fund. So if you ever fall on hard times in Israel, or if you ever just decide that you want to retire, or you want to get access to that money that you've saved up, you have to leave. They don't want you to retire there, or to live there the rest of your life. It's an explicitly temporary arrangement, and we can't obviously retroactively do that. But repatriation is, I think, a lot more sensible and achievable than many of the mainstream would want you to believe. Thought Crown Queen, did you have an opinion about this guy's talk?
Similar to you guys again. He was very strong on it. I picked up the climate change red flags as well. And then I believe he said, well, he was faced with quite a good question from the MC, saying that because his solution was, integration, he did acknowledge that there was an issue with the amount of immigration, but put it down purely to integration. And the question was, if integration isn't happening because native people are moving out of these cities, which is the case, white flight, then how do we encourage integration without forcing people to live where they don't want to live? And his response was quite weak. I thought it was sort of, saying that he doesn't support, government meddling, but it didn't really address the question, which I thought was a good one.
Yeah, I guess it all speaks to a slightly weird, I don't want to say disorganized, but there was a sort of, there wasn't much cohesion between the speakers, between the kind of the different energies, almost like the various speakers. I think we had 6 speeches throughout the day, and because there was no theme to the talks, it was all just sort of, we'll invite this guy here and he can talk about whatever he wants. It was quite disjointed, which, I guess I haven't been to many of these conferences, but maybe I've been spoiled by the 2 WITANs that I've attended, where there's always a theme, and the speakers are all very aware of each other and aware of what they're all going to say, moderately, that they understand, they can really have a good idea of who's watching and who's listening, who's in the audience, what our ideas are, where are the disagreements, and where do we agree. Whereas these speakers were surprisingly diverse in their sort of out there the viewpoints, but without even acknowledging that there was a disagreement in how they were coming to these issues. It was as if the speakers were all completely independent of each other and not acquainted with each other's work or their ideas at all. So I'd say that was not great. This is my first traditional Britain conference, by the way. I don't know if this is how it is every year or if they were trying something new this year. I was interested, by the way, to hear about their difficulties getting a venue secured for this event. They said that over the last few months, they've had to book and rebook and ask for refunds, and they've tried to sue several organizations who would not let them speak at their venues.
It's so many, like 4 or 5 or something, just a ridiculous
I think they were up to their 5th one, perhaps. Yeah. And even organizations who'd been welcoming to them in the past were now refusing to house them, not out of a lack of availability, but just due to fear of social backlash, I think. So that was interesting. I understand it's not easy to organize these events, and I'm really grateful to people who do spend their time organizing these things. But I do have to be honest, and I think the Schildings, the organization who organize some of our other events, seem to be doing a great job. I didn't even appreciate how well they were doing until I went to one that was perhaps less thought out a little bit. I don't want to talk too much about lunch. There was a good social element there. Like I went kind of expecting that I'd meet people like you two and other people who I know, and there certainly were people there, possibly just because Alexander Adams and Academic Agent and Sargon, Carl Benjamin were all going to be there. I don't know if that was what attracted the people I actually wanted to talk to. It almost felt like we were gate crashing the traditional Britain event. But again, I haven't been there before, so I don't know what it's usually like. So I guess we'll talk about after lunch, after a bit of socializing and some tea and coffee and biscuits. We had straight out of the gate Nima Parvini, author of Prophets of Doom and the Populist Delusion, was there, and his speech consisted of the final chapter from Prophets of Doom with additional I guess he had images in the presentation, didn't he? And he also had embellishments and ad-libbed sections, but it was based around the last chapter of his book, which he was obviously there to promote. He was selling copies of it, and I saw some people bought copies, people who did not look like his typical audience. So good for him. I think it's a good book. And I should add that Nima will be coming on the channel, I hope. He's agreed to, but we haven't set a date yet, to talk about Prophets of Doom, which is a book that I've read that I really enjoyed, and there's lots that I want to talk to him about. So I guess that's a question. If you anyone watching this, if you want me to ask Academic Agent a question, do let me know, and I'll consider adding it to the agenda of that chat, and look out for that in your notifications panel, I guess. So yeah, I mean, what would you expect? It's it's Academic Agent, and he's giving a speech. It's just like watching his live stream, except you can see his face and his lips are moving. But even though it was his ideas are solid, and I like his book, I was sort of acutely aware that the audience was not prepared to hear such a kind of esoteric, lofty ideas when they're when we've been hearing that morning about the particular birth rates and the particular policy challenges that we are facing now in this country, to hear about the much wider aspects of civilizational rise and fall and decline of civilizational sort of cycles, it was very different, and it was, I think, perhaps lost on some of the audience. I imagine it was because it is so detached from mainstream right-wing thought. It's almost beyond the scope of what we call left-wing and right-wing. It was just what would you call value-free analysis, very sort of broadly looking at the way that anthropologically, the way that people operate and the way that civilizations rise and fall. So Thought Crime Queen, we're really going to have to come up with an acronym or something for you so I don't have to trip over it. Did you have any thoughts on Prophets of Doom? Have you read the book? Did you like the talk? Did you see it already at the WITAN?
I did see it at the WITAN. It was really good to be able to see it again. I think he added some things in, but as you say, there's a lot to it, and it is quite esoteric and abstract. So yeah, I really enjoyed the second time of listening. I have got a copy of the Prophets of Doom, but I haven't read it yet. And yeah, I thought it was excellent. A question that I think had been bubbling below the surface for me since I listened to the talk the first time at the WITAN is sort of, quite a lot of the talk focuses on the conditions that will bring about, the great man of history, our Caesar. And he makes the point that, when it's happened before, there's been, periods of great suffering. And he references, physical suffering, sort of living in the mountains, being in prison, things like that. And when I was listening the second time, I was considering, I wonder if I wonder where we are, in terms of the winter of civilization, how close we are to the spring, because it does occur to me that while we might be materially quite comfortable, although there are some, it's changing for a lot of people, spiritually and in terms of living close to a natural life, we live such unnatural lives. We are sort of in captivity, maybe more so than our ancestors. We have, less freedom, work more, and all of that sort of thing. And we're denied a tradition, even sort of truths that everyone took for granted in terms of male and female, and that sort of thing, are being taken away. So I do wonder if that sort of suffering will bring about Caesar, or whether we have to wait for things to get worse physically. That seems like quite a long way off.
When he made that point, I was thinking about Conan from Conan the Barbarian. I don't know if you've seen that film, but Conan in the film, and perhaps in the books as well, is an orphan of a village that is raided by barbarians, and he spends his entire childhood and adolescence pushing a wheel around, like a big wooden wheel, and he becomes a really strong young man by just pushing a wheel his entire life. And other people who are pushing the same wheel as him, who are also been enslaved, all die off, and he has to push it on his own. It's this amazing montage, and he grows up to be this amazing warrior, and eventually becomes a king. That's the kind of that's the kind of suffering I imagine you have to go through to become the Caesar. But I think there's plenty of young people who, like you say, have suffered in other ways. They are extremely isolated and alienated from their lives. And I feel like if you gave them a cause to fight for, if you gave them their Caesar, and someone with enough good ideas and enough what do you call it? Enough might, enough charisma to summon them and say, here are your swords, here's your armor, and here are the people you're going to kill. You could probably summon up a pretty healthy army to defeat the conquering hordes. Not that I'm saying that would be desirable, but I think when people are this disaffected and kind of aimless, if the first person who comes up and gives them a purpose will be able to harness a sort of great energy, this great frustration that I think is being felt by our generation. But as for the Caesar himself, I don't know. I can't speak to that. I suspect that being raised lonely and disaffected is not enough for a Caesar to arise. I think it does take a kind of physical discomfort and hard, kind of resilience that's built up over years and years of pain, of suffering, to create a Caesar like that. But that's just my opinion. Shield Maiden, did you like the speech? Do you think Caesar is coming? Does he already live?
I would have no idea about any Caesars. I mean, if you want a Caesar, there is Caesar salad available at your local grocery store.
I like to make a Caesar salad, yeah.
But see, the thing is that when he started to speak, I was standing at the back, and I knew what he had said was from the Witten. It was very similar. So I went to the bathrooms, and I came across the Scotsman playing chess. So I was waylaid for the rest of his
nice.
speech.
That sounds like time well spent. But yeah, you've seen it before. Yeah, I guess we'll talk about that more when AA comes back to talk about Prophets of Doom, coming soon. And the next one, I don't remember his name again. He was an Austrian politician, from a quote far right Austrian party. Talking, one of the weird things he said was that the AfD in Germany, the so-called far right party in Germany, was containment and not truly far right, and was a kind of useless political organization, which is something I'd never heard before, to be honest. But that, right out of the gate, that was kind of an interesting thing to say. But I found his speech to be quite wide-ranging and a bit aimless. Like, he hadn't scripted it. He was a very good speaker. He spoke in proper sentences and fully articulated ideas, but without a main thrust to the argument, like a through line that I could follow. I actually remember almost nothing of what he said. Thought Crime Queen, do you remember what he said?
Well, I think, he said it was quite confused because there were some things that, I agreed with, and then some things that were sort of, like you, I have quite a disjointed memory of that talk. He did talk a bit about, I think it was him, or perhaps it was the first guy, but I think it was him, about, how well the AfD is doing, which I wasn't aware of. And I thought that was interesting. He gave some background on that, and their problems with being so popular that they're an enemy of democracy and things like that. Then he also talked quite a lot about immigration into Vienna and the demographic change there, which I don't really think about Austria very much, and wasn't aware that things were so bad there. But then he sort of seemed to retreat a bit and was sort of saying, well, it is what it is, and it almost went down along similar lines as the old guy. I thought he sort of lost it. He could have gone somewhere else, but I was quite surprised and had a similar feeling of, are we all on the same page, and where's this going? But yeah, overall he was an engaging speaker, even though the talk was quite disjointed. You could tell he was a politician, and he definitely had a a certain energy and charisma around him that was, quite easy to listen to.
He brought up fertility, which was that what you alluded to, him echoing the old guy, which is the academic who spoke about fertility in the morning. This Austrian politician also had something to say about birth rates. Shield Maiden, do you have any memories of what this guy talked about, or what? He said something about Disraeli, Benjamin Disraeli, our prime minister, a long time ago, said that what we think of as politics is just to paraphrase, is a show that's put on in a theatre on the stage, and the people who we all think of as politicians, people we think have power, are actually just actors, and the people behind the scenes are never seen. The people who really are telling them where to go and what to say, what to do, those are completely unseen players who we will never see, and everything happening on the stage is just for distraction and amusement, which I thought was a very articulate way of showing the image. And he came back to that image a few times. But Shield Maiden, what do you remember about the talk?
But does that mean he's telling on himself because he's a politician?
Yeah, right.
No, I did come back for that one. Yeah, I did come back for that one. I just found it really interesting how the way the refugees, the masses of hordes entering Europe, the way they're moving around is where they can go to get benefits. Like, they don't stay in Hungary. They move across the border into Austria because of the laws regarding, the refugees and stuff. And I guess for me, it makes the whole situation seem a lot easier to put a stop to, because it's a matter of stop giving out refugee visas, all of this kind of stuff. A few laws can change and these refugee problems just go away.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we do sometimes forget that when there's a lot of people who are saying that politics isn't the solution because the system is so broken that they'll never let anyone truly dissident or truly right-wing be in charge. But really, there are a few laws that if you change them would make a lot of difference. And if we knew what those laws were, we could potentially create some kind of pressure party, or we've talked about this before, but we're really not in that hopeless a solution if we could just start to get some leverage and start to get some grip on on politicians. It seems impossible at first because we haven't had much success yet, but there's I guess, speaking of optimism, Sargon of Akkad, or Akkad, as the MC introduced him as, a popular YouTuber, Sargon of Akkad, had his speech to wrap up the day with a little bit of optimism, talking about how if we could get some power, potentially, thinking about this a few, maybe a decade from now and onwards, we'll have some bad years to begin with, but we could potentially slowly gain power in this country and try to change some of these laws, just without making it completely hopeless. There is something we can do if we would only channel this pent-up energy in a way that would actually could yield results, even if it's not successful or not successful right away. It's potentially better than what we're doing now, which is talking and not doing much. I think it's a viewpoint that I do agree with to some extent, and I've been a little bit embarrassed to voice because the atmosphere is so negative and defeatist that even to say that we might have a chance is to sound hopelessly naive. Shield Maiden, what did you think of Sargon's speech?
Well, I thought his idea of taking over the Tory party was a good one, because that's like, if we're stuck with the two-party system, then why not steal a party? I mean, you can't beat them, join them. We'll take them over. I mean, people tell me it takes a lot of organizing and planning, and it's a big job, but it's better to do something than nothing,
Yeah, so his point was that the Conservatives are due, in his opinion, and my opinion too, they are due for a complete defeat at the next election, and perhaps the election after that as well. In my opinion, they are so completely useless and reviled by everyone, not just the left but also the right. The mainstream news, everyone hates the Conservative Party in the UK at the moment, and when they have suffered a great defeat, they might be, and a lot of MPs have lost their posts. They might be ready for some new ideas, for an upheaval. They might be desperate for a new body of people who are ready to come along and volunteer and post leaflets and to try to get them elected. And those people could be us, the new revitalizing energy that enters the Conservative Party in 5, 10, 15 years could be us. We could be providing the new lifeblood and the new ideas for the party. And he also talked about Nigel Farage, which is, I understood what he was talking about. That he said that Nigel Farage is a very popular politician at the moment, much more popular than any other right-wing politician in the country, especially among young people. He was the most popular figure at the Conservative Party conference, and this leads Sargon to have some optimism that if Nigel Farage were a Conservative politician instead of having his own party, that he could lead the party in a better direction. Thought Crime Queen, what did you remember of the speech?
I thought it was really good. Sargon gave a similarly practical speech at the WITAN as well, and I thought that it was really good. As you say, there is so much pessimism, and understandably so, that I think it at the moment almost does take quite a lot of bravery to start suggesting solutions. There is this feeling that there's nothing that can be done apart from to wait. And, I think that it is important that we get ready. I don't really think we have anything to lose by trying it. It's quite an exciting idea. I like the idea of it. I think that they're almost so unpopular. I'd be interested to go to a Conservative Party conference and see who were there in terms of young people, because I imagine that there is probably quite a lot of room for the sorts of people that are in our circles, that they'd be quite well received, and maybe it would be a case of hiding our power levels for a while. But I don't see why it's not possible. And we know that part of the reason that the Tories will lose is because they're not right wing enough. And so if they can be encouraged to learn that and and start acting on it, I think that it's possible. And I think that we'll certainly, if we attempt this sort of thing, we gain skills, we gain connections, we see what does work, what doesn't. So I think it's quite an exciting idea, and I think it was brave of Carl to suggest it, because most of the time when people suggest any sort of positive thing, it's shot down.
Yeah, it did require some bravery, and I like what you said about building on those skills and connections, and we're not expecting it to work right away. But if we're talking about the future of the country, then it's worth it, right? It's worth investing this time that may not immediately pay off with results, to gain that footing. And then when all of the Conservatives have sort of retired, there'll be a new generation of people who have been fully co-opted by us, potentially. Something that did come to mind as a response to, like, what do we have to lose? I don't know if I think, I thought, Crime Queen, you were at the WITAN 2 years ago where Curtis Yarvin mentioned Moldbug. Were you there? You were there with that one.
I was, yeah.
He talked about this phenomenon on the right where you can't just do anything. Like you can't just do whatever you want and hope it works. You have to really fight for successes that will make success easier in the future. And it's possible to make these, short-term wins that will then cripple yourself later. Or if we overstep too far, we could end up making it even harder for Conservatives to win later. I can't think of any sort of solid examples, but for example, if we tried to repatriate some portion of immigrants who are settled in the UK, then we may end up losing power immediately and not being able to even control immigration, if that makes sense. So by trying to ask for too much too quickly, we may end up just losing power and make it even harder to get votes in the future. It is possible to take action that will hinder yourself, to just be self-sabotaging if it's not planned with proper understanding of how the world really works. So there's one cautioning voice that it's not a case of just doing something because something's better than nothing. Well, sometimes nothing is better than something was Moldbug's point, which is kind of a scary thought. But I'm still partial to Sargon's optimism, and I want to get involved. I didn't want to spend too long on the stream tonight. I realized we're already overrun. Shield Maiden, what any more thoughts to add before we wrap up?
Well, I was impressed by Carl's speech because I found out, despite being a foreigner, I'm eligible to vote in the UK.
Wonderful.
Which is strange. No, it only works between Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, and the UK, like
the Commonwealth.
But those specific countries. So I probably should start caring about your politics, seeing as I need to start voting now. But I was thinking of when they upload his speech, I wanted to see if I could not write a manifesto, but basically that. And I'd want to talk to a lot of different people about it as well, to just like get what Carl talked about and put it into. I found him convincing, so I don't mean a more convincing form, but just having it written down and presented, like the Communist Manifesto presents those ideas.
The Reactionary Manifesto, the plan. We have a plan to save the country, and all we need is your help.
Yeah.
Thought Crime Queen, any more thoughts before we wrap up? I'm sure other streams have already begun to steal our viewers.
No, I think no. Thank you for having me on. Well, I suppose one thing I was going to say actually was just, I definitely recommend it for next year. I think I'll be going again. It was really nice to see, sort of familiar faces in our crowd mixing with the traditional Britain crowd is a lot older, and it was nice. We went to the pub afterwards, and at coffee time people were mixing, and I think as we are a very young crowd, and I think we can learn a lot from from those guys in terms of they have so much experience with things, and I think they can learn a lot from us as well. So I hope that relationship continues, even though there's obviously some disagreement on certain things.
Yeah, I liked the event, and I liked seeing my online associates and you two as well. So I think I will continue to go to the events as long as they keep hosting them somewhere that's somewhat close to me for a price that's reasonable. It's a good social opportunity, if nothing else, and an opportunity to learn some new ideas and to see some interesting speakers. So I didn't want to sound too negative on it. It was just a little bit, didn't even know what was going to come next because it was so disjointed. But yeah, I think we have a super chat from GRT before we finish. He says, for $10, thank you. There's always hope with a capital H. I like that. Here in the States, we've got it bad now, but it might turn around with the will and the right policies. I wish to visit the UK someday. I wish to visit England someday. and for it to be English when I visit. Well, you better visit quick, DRT. No, I'm kidding. There are plenty of places in England that are still very English. It was observed during the conference, I think when we were talking about demographics, that this white flight phenomenon has produced these extremely traditionally British enclaves around London and in many rural parts of the country, basically away from any town centres, sort of city centres. You'll get these just village after village of what you think of as England. English towns, English churches, English houses, English people, and speaking the English language, and having a very English cup of tea and complaining about the English weather, as it should be. Visiting England, I think there's probably a lot more valuable tourism to be done outside of London compared to into it. I wouldn't advise going to the London Eye or Madame Tussauds. It's probably a waste of your time. But do visit England. There's some lovely places to visit, and watch the video by Callum from the Lotus Eaters. I think he's called Britannia. I can never remember his channel name because it's Britannia Speaks. Britannica Speaks. Let me just look this up. There we go. Yeah, Britannia Speaks. And he has a video all about tourism in Britain, sort of recommending various rural British sites. And that was a great video too. So that was kind of a divergence. But yeah, tourism in England is good. You can see a lot of really lovely English places. So do visit DRT and anyone else watching. And let me know if there's any conferences that you are all going to. That goes for the people on the panel, but also in the audience. A lot of these places are just... they don't advertise that well, so I don't know when they're on.
On Friday, there's the Ed Dutton event.
Oh my goodness! I didn't know about that. I think I did hear about it, but I didn't know it was coming up this Friday. So I'll see if there's still tickets to that, or if I can even arrange childcare at short notice. But anything's possible. Thanks for that. Tell me 2 weeks ahead next time.
Okay.
Don't assume I know, because I don't know. Good. Thanks ladies for joining me. Thanks everyone for watching this strange midweek Whammon Hour, and enjoy the usual programming as it resumes, I hope, soon. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for joining me, Thought Crime Queen, and Shield.
Yep, thanks.
See everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.